Handle's completely broken, shattered here, here, over here.
Alrighty guys, thank you for joining me again today. As always, I'm Hunter Wilkins and this is Father and Forge, and we've got a cool project today. We're going to be making a chef's knife. So I haven't done one before. I know basically how to do it, and I'm going to meddle my way through it, and hopefully it turns out decent. So for this project, before that, let's go back to the last project real quick. So this is the last project. I think it turned out really cool. These scales are just sick, and those are from Exotic Blanks. You can find him on Instagram. Really cool stuff. I've got another set coming from him for another chef's knife I'm going to do. This particular chef's knife is going to be a hidden tang, and we're going to use this block from JDM scales. Look at that, that's pretty, isn't it? I'm going to actually leave that rough burl texture. I'm going to basically split this like this, and hopefully get 2 knife handles out of it. Now the other 2 scales I've got coming from Exotic Blanks for the next chef knife, those will be for a full tang version. So it'll be a little bit different of a process, but ultimately it's all just forging, right? So anyway, again, beautiful block from JDM scales. So that's going to be our handle. Our knife material today is going to be some 1095. These are knife blanks. You can pick them up on Amazon. I've been doing that lately just because I don't have a supplier in the area, although I do know of one out of state that is supposed to be really, really good. So I'm probably going to go that route from now on, but for the time being, given the quarantine and all that good stuff, I've got a few blocks of these. This will work fine for what I'm doing. So without further ado, let me fire up the forge and let's get started making this super cool chef's knife. So while that heats up for a minute, I'm going to talk about how I'm going to execute. So I've just got these 2 knives from the kitchen, just as kind of a reference. So this one has a more of a sloping point that goes down. I kind of like that. This is kind of a more traditional shape. These are both really, really bad knives too. They're not very good. They're sharp right now, but they don't hold an edge at all. So this 1095 steel, when properly heat treated, will hold an edge, no problem, last for months and months and months in the kitchen. So it'll be a good thing. So I'm gonna take that square bar and I'm gonna hammer out a triangle tip. Basically, I'm gonna kind of roughly estimate where I want to start my tang, and then I'm gonna isolate that, bring that down. It's gonna come pretty narrow. It's gonna be kind of like that to go down inside of the block that I showed you. So that's kind of the plan. I'm going to use these 2 as reference points as throughout the process, so you might see me grab them. This is a good example of full tang. See the pins, and then you've got this guy, which is actually a hidden tang. No pins or anything. It's just got a small section that goes in here and is glued in. But this knife is going to be way better than both of these could ever hope to be. So Alright, so you can see I'm really trying to to keep it straight as I go along. What I'm going to do now, I've marked it out. Those other two knives, and I know I hate the imperial measurement system, but they're 8 inches. My metal ruler is only an imperial. So they're 8-inch blades. I'm going to mark this one at like 8.5 and start the tang. And I'm thinking that by me hammering it out with the round side of the hammer and fleshing it all out, it's going to actually extend that length quite a bit. By how much, I don't know. I'm not experienced enough to be able to just come up with that number off the top of my head, but I'm going to mark it. We're going to start drawing where the tang's going to be, and then we're going to just start fleshing the whole thing out, thinning it down, stretching it out. So yeah, there we go. Alright, that's the hard part. So now we're just gonna flesh this thing out. Alright, so now I've got my basic form lined out. I'm gonna flatten it all out, reduce a couple little areas, get it all nice and even, and then we're gonna start grinding. Okay, so this is where we're at right now. Looking pretty good. It's bigger than both of those knives that I was using as reference. It is still a little thick. It's a little thicker than I normally would leave a knife, but I'm trying to save a lot of room for grinding because I want to really grind the hell out of this thing. So my tang's definitely long enough. It's probably too long. I might have to cut that down a little bit too, but it's just ooh, I think I'm gonna like it a lot. All right, so just put a fresh 80 grit belt on my little 1x30 because that's what I got right now. Been using Red Label abrasives. They seem to be really good, really inexpensive, and they do the job well. So I'm not trying to plug brands here, but that's just to give you an idea of what I am using. Before I do that, before I jump on the grinder, I'm going to knock the scale off with my little angle grinder. I'm not going to record that. I'm just going to do that real quick. I'll show you, and then we'll jump on the grinder and just start grinding through this thing. Alright, so it doesn't look much different, but you can see now that without the scale all over it, I think it looks pretty cool. Alright, so we're off to the races. We're going to go ahead and start grinding on this thing. It's coming along. I'm gonna make this one shiny. I'm really liking how it looks right now with the forged finish on it, but I don't do a lot of like actual high polish finishes, and I really wanted to do that on this. So I think I'm gonna keep grinding, and we're gonna make this thing shiny. Alright, so that's heating back up so I can get it ready for heat treat. I've got to thermocycle it a few times, so what I do is I heat it up, and I usually bring it in here, so it's a little bit lower light. I can actually see the temperature and see where I'm at, because I want to go from an orange to black basically at least like 3 or 4 times before I quench it. So that gives the steel a chance to kind of normalize and get all the atoms nice and lined up, ready to fix in place when I actually do quench it. Alright, so you can see way better in here. When I'm out in the by the anvil and everything, you really can't see these colors at all, but you can see this really well in here. So a lot of times it looks like I'm hammering on cold steel. I'm really not, but it takes me, I have to be careful, you know, make sure that I'm not hammering on cold steel. So every now and then, you know, I'll pick a piece up and I'll bring it into the shade so I can check its color. But with this thing right now, we just basically gotta let it go to a nice black color. This is probably a pretty good quenching temperature for this steel. I typically would want that that more orangey cherry red color along the edge, though. I just hope I don't get any deformations when I actually quench it. But yeah, so I got to do this at least 2 more times, if not 3 more times, and then we'll be able to quench and continue the grind. Alright, that was cycle number 3. So I'm running low on propane, so on this heat, I'm just going to go ahead and go for it, and we'll see how it goes. Here we go. Success. Okay, I'm about ready to call it for now. Just got a couple little spots left. There, and a few little guys on this side. Look at those guys. So, I'm pretty much out of time for today. But this is what we got coming along. I think it's gonna look pretty darn cool when it's done. But that's where we're at. And that's where we're gonna leave it for now because I'm out of time. Alright guys, so I'm back again in the workshop. I'm gonna scrap pretty much all of day 2. We're on day 3 now. Day 2 was a complete mess. I was trying to make a brooch tool. That didn't really work out too well. Kind of worked, but not very great. And then, alright, so I'll show you my progress because I worked on the handle mostly yesterday. That was day 2. So this is where I was at, and I'm leaving that nice little rough end. Got all that bored out and everything. Had everything ready to be pinned and glued up. I had everything dry fit together, looked pretty nice. I was thinking about maybe adding a little bolster on there, but I wasn't at that stage yet. So literally what I was doing is I have a finish belt on my grinder right now, and I was just slack belt kind of polishing up the handle just to see what it looked like. So I took a step back to admire my handiwork, and I don't know what I tripped on, but I tripped. It was bad. So I fell on I cleaned up a little bit just to get stuff out of the way. You can see all the wet on the floor there. That's all from my quench oil that spilled everywhere. I fell on top of the propane tank. Somehow narrowly avoided landing on my tongs that were sticking up out of the this bucket here. This is actually really sharp. That would have gone straight through me if I had fallen on that. So I'd be dead. And nobody even heard me like fall out here. So thanks, wife. Thanks for that. I think she heard it. She just didn't want to come save me. So that bucket. That bucket was kind of over here. The propane tank was here. There was some crap over here. I've got a really small workspace, and the lesson is definitely if you've got a small workspace, keep it at least somewhat clean so you don't almost kill yourself, because I fell on the propane tank. So that could have been bad all in itself. Had a grinder running. Knife went flying up in the air out of my hands. I don't even know like how close it was to falling on me and impaling me with air. I almost impaled my back, like through my shoulders, possibly chest, maybe even my head, on that rebar sticking out from the tongs. Knocked over the oil. So there's that too. Oh, and then to top it all off, so like it was kind of a delayed thing. I was sitting there kind of like, what happened? And then all of a sudden, boom, on the back of my head. My head still hurts. I got a huge knot. Pretty sure I have a concussion, but so it's all good. My forge, which was sitting right here, I think what happened is I grabbed the hose, or my arm caught the hose. So that literally fell off the shelf after I'd already been on the ground, and I was kind of trying to sit back up, and just bashed me in the back of the head. And then I think that it came down on my knee as well. I have not a big gash. I got a little tiny cut on my knee, and it's all swollen and fun today. So yeah, so that was like the universe just tried to assassinate me yesterday. So screw you, universe, because I'm still alive. But yeah, so anyway, so the worst part about that all is that would have been like gold on film. Oh no, I'm sorry. That's the second worst part. The worst part about that is I broke my handle. So after all that work yesterday, this shattered into pieces. I glued back what I could. Still got this notch here. I can't fix that. So what I'm gonna end up doing now, so we're gonna do an experiment. if this experiment fails, I've got this little piece of bone, which I've fit up for the knife, and I can shape this out. So I have that as kind of a backup. I don't know if I'll use it at all with the other design I'm thinking, but if I have it. It's there. So my other plan, before I try that, I'm gonna do an experiment. I've experimented with smelting metals before. If you've watched some of my older videos, which were pretty much garbage, you've seen me trying to smelt aluminum cans in this little tiny little crucible. It didn't go so well in those attempts. I could never get the mold to set properly. I did buy some what's that sand called? The molding sand. I don't remember what it's called now. Again, not a professional smelting for sure, or casting rather. But I have some of that sand. Trying to let it dry out a little bit now to get to the right consistency. But I'm just gonna mold like a rectangular block. I'm gonna cut up some copper, and I'm gonna put that in my crucible. Turn the forge on like 11 and let it ride. And then I'm gonna try to do a pour into that. See if I can get some cast copper. Did I say copper or did I say aluminum? I meant copper. Copper pipe. Whatever I said, I don't know. Copper pipe. We're gonna cut up some copper pipe, cast that. Hopefully, I'll end up with a copper bolster. And I actually like that idea a lot anyway, because I really need to cut like all this off, even below where the pin is. But I don't know. I don't know yet. I'm gonna try to work with what I've got. I'm definitely gonna have to trim it down. I'm gonna try to keep it pinned so that there's more support for the handle itself. And hopefully once the epoxy's in there and everything works out. I'm not planning on selling this one at this point. This is just gonna go in my kitchen basically, because I'm not gonna sell something that was broken and partially repaired, because I know that with the materials and the equipment that I have, I don't think that I can properly repair this up to a standard which I'd be comfortable selling it. So this is gonna be a personal knife at this point now. But it's still cool. I do have the other half of that block, which is still freaking beautiful. So I've got that. So on my next one that I do, next hidden tang knife that I do, I can use that block and we can try to sell that piece. So that being said, we're going to jump in and we're going to do some smelting today and try to get that bolster out, and then hopefully we can get a good fit up all around. So that is the plan. Unfortunately, everything just went to pot yesterday, and I don't have footage of the accident, so most of the footage is really boring. So I'm just gonna scrap that, and we're just gonna jump in today and start fresh. Sounds like a plan, right? Okay, we've got some copper. We're gonna throw it in the forge, cook it up, and dump in our mold. I've never been able to do this successfully before, so keep that in mind. Fire is starting to turn a little green. I think that's a good sign. Yep, it's starting to melt, so we'll see if we can get some decent product out of it. Okay, it's totally liquid. I'm gonna pull it out and go for a pour. Okay, so that worked crazy well, and I got more than enough copper for the next part of my bolster. So I'm super stoked about that. That was cool. I'm gonna shape this up real quick, and then we can start drilling it out and filing it. Making slow and painful progress. Okay, so the bone wasn't working out, so I did some stacked leather in between the copper bolster. I think it's gonna work out pretty well. So that's it overall. I just have to put the finishing touches on it. Alright, I'm about ready to call this one done. Still have a lot of hand sanding to do, but I don't have the sandpaper in my stock right now, so I'm gonna hit this handle with some boiled linseed oil. Let's see it come to life. Alright, so I'm dubbing this the cursed blade for all the trouble that it caused me. Left that rough end on there. So copper bolster. I gotta polish that up, but not too shabby. Stacked leather right behind it. Alright guys, so that was the Hidden Tang kitchen knife, which was going to be a chef's knife, but started to get away from me there and didn't turn into one. So I was going to start just making it into a kitchen knife. Then I almost died making it. So that is the cursed kitchen knife. Now I'll get this all hand sanded up and we'll post some more pictures on Instagram, but for now this knife is done and it's just going to be fine tuning from here. So thank you for watching so much. Please like and subscribe. Check me out on Instagram, check me out on Patreon, and I will see you guys in the next video.